Today in pre-cal we learned how to multiply complex numbers. There were a couple of ways we discussed that you'd be able to do this, and that would be using distribution, FOIL, or the box method. And it is totally up to you which of those methods you would like to use. You should have learned all three of them in Algebra 1, so whatever you're most comfortable with will be fine. I will model all three methods in the notes today. For example, number 1, if I want to multiply 4 times negative 2 plus 3i. In this problem, there's only one thing multiplied by two things, or a monomial by a binomial, so I'm going to distribute. 4 times negative 2 is negative 8. 4 times 3 is 12. So my answer is negative 8 plus 12i. And that's it for that one. Example number 2. 2 minus I times 4 plus 3i. In this one I have a binomial by a binomial, so I'm going to make a 2 by 2 box. I'm going to show you the box method here. 2 and negative I, 4 and 3i. Remember, I don't have to carry the signs unless they're negative. I multiply it out. 2 times 4 is 8. 4 times negative I is negative 4i. 2 times 3i is 6i. And 3i times negative I is negative 3i squared. I can combine my like terms. So in this problem I'll have 8, and then 6 plus negative 4 is 2i minus 3i squared. Remember from yesterday, I squared is equal to negative 1. That was when we talked about winning the lottery. Remember, I won. And when you've done that, then you can plug in for I, negative 1. Okay, negative 3 and negative 1 make positive 3. And 8 plus 3 is 11, plus 2i. And that's your final answer. Example number 3. Let's do one with FOIL. 3 plus 2i times 3 minus 2i. If I do that, and I want to use FOIL to solve, I'm going to do 3 times 3, which is 9. 3 times negative 2, which is negative 6i. 2i times 3, which is positive 6i. 2i times negative 2i, which is negative 4i squared. The middle terms will cancel because they're opposite. And then I have 9 plus 4, because negative 1 times negative 4 is positive 4. And 9 plus 4, of course, is 13. And that's my final answer. Let's do one more example together. Number 4. 3 plus 2i quantity squared. When something is squared, I have to write it twice to get the correct answer. So I'm going to do that, and then I'm going to FOIL it out. In class I had the students do this on their own, so I'm going to do it real quickly here for you. 3 times 3 is 9, 3 times 2i is 6i, 2i times 3 is 6i, and 2i times 2i is 4i squared. I should have negative plus 12i plus 4 times I squared is negative 4, and so I have 5 plus 12i. Finally, I gave the students a couple of helpful hints. And those are, when something is written in a plus bi form squared, you have to write it twice to be able to solve it. If you don't do that, you will most likely get an incorrect answer. Also, when you're multiplying two things under a square root, such as the square root of a times the square root of b, that is the square root of ab. Only if the square root of a times square root of a do these two things cancel each other. And so the answer will just be a, because two things square root squared would cancel and it'd just be a. If it's different, it goes under the radical together. And finally, remember that I squared is the same as negative 1, and anytime you see it, you have to replace it with that to get the correct answer. The assignment today was A10, and it's page 167, 27 to 36. If you have questions, be sure to ask those in tutorials or during class time when you're given the opportunity.